My name is Michael Scuduto, and I'm the Solution Manager for Human Resources here at Perceptive Software. Today's presentation will be delivered by Grant Chappell, Director of Business Applications at Visiting Nurse Service of New York. Grant, I will hand it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you. Hi, I'm Grant Chappell. So as Michael said, I'm the Director of Business Systems at Visiting Nurse Service of New York. My team, or I'm responsible for teams that support our PeopleSoft HR, PeopleSoft Financials, Hyperion, and ImageNet, our Perceptive Content, and our time entry system. So today we're going to talk about how we implemented Perceptive Content, kind of what we're, some of the processes that we did, and just go over the solution that we put in place. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to talk about the challenges, our desired future state, part of what we went through the process. I'm going to talk about some of our solutions, and then, after we got all done, thinking back and looking back at the project, some thoughts to pass on to you guys. Okay. So anyway, so Visiting Nurse Service in New York, we're the largest not-for-profit home health care agency in the U.S. We see some, as you can see here, some 163,000 patients a year. We're centered in the boroughs of New York City, but we also are expanding into other counties, Westchester, Nassau, and to upstate. So we have, this is what this slide doesn't show, is we have about 18,000 employees that we need to service through ImageNow, their HR records through ImageNow. Okay, so some of the challenges. Obviously we were a paper-based process. We have PeopleSoft Human Resources, which is great, which does a lot of work, but it doesn't manage the paper and the documents that we receive either electronically or online. So we needed a solution that would manage all that. And also, one of the things that it keeps bubbling up, even in other conversations that I have outside of our HR processes, is visibility. If the paper is in a filing cabinet, obviously there's no visibility into what's there, what we have, or what we don't have. So, okay. All right, so as I talked about, this is a slide that kind of represents our employee documents. Manhattan is where the core HR functions reside, but as you can see, we have other regional offices. And one of the things that was in place before this project is that for our nurses, we kept shadow files out in the regions, and we had those shadow files because we could have state auditors walk in at literally at a moment's notice. They can just show up and demand documentation on our nurses, their certifications and what have you. So we had to keep shadow files out in the regions. This is one of the things that was, obviously we have duplicates, and then if a nurse moved, you literally have to pick up their documents, say from Queens, and move it out to Westchester, which obviously, sometimes it takes days, or heaven forbid, their paperwork gets lost. And then also in the slide, you see the new hire paperwork, that needs to be disseminated across the boroughs. So in our desired future state, obviously there's some other components that we wanted to put into this. We wanted to track when we have applicants come in. We want to be able to track that, and we want to be able to track their documents in an automated way. As I spoke earlier, we want to eliminate these shadow files. We want to get rid of this duplicate, sometimes 3 and 4 versions of the truth or copies of documents. Part of the implementation too was then what do we do with all those paper documents? And as you get into your own implementations, you tend to have either with your first, Perceptive implementation or subsequent ones, is you have two phases. There's always the go forward, like now we're going to use Perceptive content going forward, but then what do we do with all of our historical files? And also part of the desired future state was, we want to be able to track missing documents in an automated way. We don't want people to have to go digging through Perceptive content to find it, and then allow managers and employees to access the documents that we have on file for them. So this is, I love this drawing because this slide, because it shows how we use Perceptive content for then everybody to plug into, into the HR system or into the HR documents that we have. Doesn't matter where you are, and people can do this from home. We have VPN, so people can do this from home. And also, we spread out this whole model then also to other business processes that we've now done inside of Perceptive content. So everybody can get into it. Everybody can see it. This is just, sorry, you guys can't see me smile. It's one of my favorite slides. So how we, what we're also looking for and who could help us. So this is stuff that, we wanted something obviously easy to maintain and administer. Like I said, our system is PeopleSoft. It had to integrate pretty easily into that. Security almost should almost be at the top of the list, because that, when you're talking with HR documents, you have social security numbers and other information that that you got to be very, very, very careful with. That should almost be at the top of the list, and Perceptive content allowed us to take care of the security very easily. And I'll show you that here in a little bit. And somebody who's done this before. So go to the next slide. So key factors, obviously be able to centralize, integration to PeopleSoft, simple onboarding solution, which I'll go over. I personally was not part of the selection process, but when I talked to the director that was there and another director, they said that that the Perceptive team really listened to the pain here of VNS and why, and were able to take those conversations and build them into the demo, and just nailed it. And they just hit all of our pain points and hit our concerns directly. That understand it was a great demo. So this is the team. I'm actually the guy. I was actually the guy on the implementation. So on the VNS and Y IT. That's me over there in the corner. It was really actually a pretty small team. So there was Perceptive on one side, and then we had the HRS team. And then part of what's not in here, it's shown, but I don't know if it's really clear. It shows technical support. And one of the things that I always talk about to my senior leaders and people that we go in other groups here at the organization is that we found a real, I don't want to say partner, but a real help in the Perceptive help desk. Now, when we call up for us with a support question and we have an issue, I've never worked with a vendor that was so timely, so helpful. You get stuff resolved in an hour. Sometimes it might take a day, but a day is really kind of a long window for us. It's usually right then or within an hour or two, you've got a solution and you're moving forward. I just can't say enough good things about the technical support that Perceptive provides. Go on. Okay, so part of it. So now we're talking about the solution. So the first bullet point, it talks about all the objects we have to build, document types and indexes, the workflows, what we wanted to do, what we wanted to automate. One of our goals was to have a very automated system. I wanted as few clicks as possible. We try to make it all so that, at the end of the day, the director and I and the support teams are not going into image now and fixing things, or so we try to build in a lot of automation and then a lot of wrappers of how to handle one-offs on if something goes wrong, so that it makes a very nice system. And next slide. So this is part of the solution. This is part of the workflow that we put in place for HR. Kind of starting in the middle in the pre-boarding, so the recruiters, they'll start the hiring process and then they hand it off. If you look at the, I don't know, my mouse works. The middle box, the recruitment assistants. So then they do the bulk of the work, and then if it needs to be if the package of documents for the candidate needs to be routed to a manager or to an automated process, they can do that. All right. So at the end of the day, this is kind of where this is one of the pieces where we wanted to be. We wanted to, this is some of the components we had to put in place for our solution. We would, needed to, move the applicant and employee information over to Perceptive content. So we tied the checklist in PeopleSoft to creating a project. So it's a documentation project inside of Perceptive content. Now I like to think of that sort of a manila file folder. So you're going to create a manila file folder inside of Perceptive content for all the documents that pertain to your new applicant. And then we built some integration between we drawer to doc type mapping. So we did that on the PeopleSoft side. It doesn't have to be done there, but we did it there because, like I said, we wanted to build those integrations. We're using PeopleSoft HR. We have tools on that. If anybody's familiar with that, we have a lot of tools on the HR side that we can build pages and forms and records and such to manage that. And then we also built links inside of, or added links inside of the PeopleSoft pages to actually then, if you're going into employee self-service and you want to see your performance appraisals for the last 5 years or for last whatever, you can click on a link and it'll bring up Perceptive content and it'll display the documents that you have access to. So here's the two examples of setup tables we built inside of PeopleSoft. On the upper left, so we have this is where we built the connection or the link between the checklist. Inside of PeopleSoft, it's a checklist, and what that really relates back to is the applicant. So when we create the position inside of PeopleSoft, we assign a checklist to that. So then this shows that the checklist then is linked to a folder inside of Perceptive content, folder type. And I'm trying not to get too heavy into the technical details here, but this is where we tell it what kind of applicants you're going to get. This was the simplest way we could do this. We had some very complex rules as to what sort of documents that depend, if you're a nurse or if you're a rehab nurse versus a physical therapist versus a social worker, the rules behind what documents and kind of certifications and background stuff that we need to get, it's fairly complex. So we just built the page, and it doesn't, and it doesn't have to be inside of PeopleSoft. It could be, I assume you can do something like this in Lawson, or you can actually build the integration. You can even use a CSV file, and we've done CSV files for other integrations for other groups in the agency. And then on the lower right, we set up a relationship between our drawers and Perceptive content and the doc types. And I'll explain, I'll get further into that later, but again, we built this in PeopleSoft. It could be done in an Access database, in DB2, like I said, a text file. You can build these integrations, these relationships in anything that then Perceptive content can access. Okay, so this is, if we start from the bottom, And so we talk about PeopleSoft, and when we hire a new person, it triggers a series of events. So when we get, the trigger is an offer accepted. So when we put out an offer, we get an offer accepted. So then that's the trigger. So we go inside of PeopleSoft, we select offer accepted, we hit save, and then that starts some events. So one of the things we do is, if you look from at the bottom of the slide, we push out to the left, we have an interface into our onboarding application called Red Carpet. So then that triggers an email to the applicant. The applicant logs in, starts filling out their documents. They send an email to HR that they're done, or somehow, I went through this 9 years ago, and I'm sure it's improved since then. But then essentially, then the recruiter goes in and does a report out of Red Carpet that has all of the documents that they had to fill out. So it's their application, like I say, their tax form, depending on the position, there's other forms that they have to fill out, and it creates this big PDF. And we actually then, and this is kind of cool, they save that PDF to a network file share. And that network file share is monitored by Perceptive Content. And this is the cool part. So it picks up the PDF, it actually reads the contents of the PDF, and we extract their employee ID, and then we also can go through that PDF and figure out what pages of the document are what. So through the script, we can pull out, here's a tax form, here's their, what is it? It's their W-4 form, here's their, in New York State, it's their IT 2104, and so we actually then feed these, we actually group these documents together. We use a script to get the document type out of, get the document type, and that's built into the script. And then we start feeding these documents into Perceptive Content with the employee ID. So it's all automated, and you're talking, maybe 20 documents that now nobody has to touch. One time, one drop, and it all goes in. And then on top of that, it's also built, as I talked about earlier, this folder that we have inside of Perceptive Content. So now all these documents are automatically inserted into this folder, and it is slick. I mean, the recruiters love this. They don't have to do a thing. They just drop that file, and then probably 80% of their documents are then, maybe not that high, maybe 60% of their documents are automatically fed into this folder, and then they have them all there and work off of that. Going around the other way, so when we do updates, we use Perceptive Content has this technology called Learn Mode. And Learn Mode, they're going to hate me for this. Well, not hate me, but I use the term screen scrape because it's just the best, simplest words. So they have a way of, we can actually screen scrape information from PeopleSoft, and we can apply that to documents that we have scanned or have captured through print capture, and then we interface that back into Perceptive Content. So that's pretty slick. So the Learn Mode also has some other capabilities. So if you, let's say we're hiring this person, and we need to get some documents that they couldn't fill out, that we have to go out and say get their certifications. So we go to the state agency for certifications, and we get those documents, and we do a print capture. And I tell you guys, one of the biggest things we use in some, I don't say biggest, but heavily used technology from Perceptive Content that we use is this print capture, because it's slick. So you can take whatever you're looking at, whether it's a website or even a mainframe page that comes up through the emulation, you can actually print capture those and then read the content of those fields. Well, actually, you're using the content either from ImageNet, for us, we're using the content from HR, get the content off the page, attach it to the document that you're printing, and so then you're bringing in the employee ID from PeopleSoft to the document that you're scanning, and then also through Learn Mode, it goes and finds the right new hire packet folder, the folder, remember I talked about this manila folder, and then sticks the document into the folder. And so it saves so much time, I go back to the recruiters love it because it just simplifies their tasks, reduces the tasks they have to do. This is another solution. So this is another automated solution. So obviously, if you're a large organization or any organization, you have employees move. So if your employee moves, say they change a department, maybe they got a promotion, they changed, for us we have about, I think there's 5 different, I want to say subsidiaries inside of our PeopleSoft application. So any sort of that change, we need to handle that because now, if you move, so now you're reporting to a different manager, and that manager wants to see your documents. So starting from the bottom and, kind of working this counterclockwise. So we built a process inside of PeopleSoft. For you PeopleSoft folks out there, it's just a simple SQR that we created. You could create an app engine. I was just trying to think. I think I built it. It was the SQR. And we just, we check for changes of name, change of departments, change in job codes, change in company. And so if we find something, we send that information then to Perceptive Content. Now, we could write, we could create a, how should I put this? Between the PeopleSoft, between the icons, between here and this iScript, we have sort of what we call a bridge table, or we call it a staging table. So you can get the adapters allows you from Oracle to write right to the Perceptive Content, and you could build a, I should go back a little bit of my background. So I'm a PeopleSoft guy. I'm a database guy. That's kind of how I came up through the ranks. So when I do things, I like to do it into tables, tables and/or flat files. That's sort of my my comfort zone. So getting back to, so there is adapters you can buy for Oracle to allow you to write straight to our SQL Server table that we use for Perceptive Content, but it's very expensive. So, and I really don't want, I'd rather, I don't know, since we were new with Perceptive Content, I didn't want to add to that database. I wanted to build stuff out on the PeopleSoft side because that database is established, and we know, we're very good at monitoring that, very good at watching that. So here in the middle, we built a staging table that we have an iScript that every, I don't know, I think it's every hour. The script executes and it looks for changes. It looks for stuff that it needs to handle. So it reads the staging table, it gets the employee changes, and then it goes in and updates. It goes and gets all their documents and Perceptive Content and updates their department ID, updates their name, and updates their job code and whatever other information that we're storing. So this is slick. Nobody has to worry about it. It all is taken care of. HR doesn't have to worry about it. They know that as soon as they make a change, all the documents will be handled. That goes that way. And then what you don't see in here, so if we get new content coming into Perceptive Content, we have another set of scripts that says, hey, we got new content. We need PeopleSoft, or we need to send that information, get that supporting information from PeopleSoft and pass it back around so we can update these new documents. So so there's kind of a circular pattern here. So we have HR data changes that happen here in Oracle to get passed to Perceptive Content so that we can update the key fields. And then we also have, when we have new content coming in, that we need to update the custom properties and some of the other fields, some of the searchable fields that aren't grabbed when we do the learn mode. We use this path here. So I told you I was going to get back to, I want to talk about another slick thing that we built. So inside of our Perceptive Content system, we have a bunch of drawers. So drawers are where you store documents, and I love drawers. Drawers, it's very simple to explain to the end user. You just say, because they don't get the concept of drawers and security, and how do we, security, and I just say it's simple. All you do is think about a filing cabinet with a key in it. So the documents go into different filing cabinets, and then you figure out who you're going to give the key to. So for our HR documents, when they first come in, they come into this not filed drawer, and I'm going to explain that here in a second. But then they will filter down into, depending on what the doc type is, we can put it into a certain drawer. Now, we also have special drawers set up for executives and HR personnel on top of all the other ones. And, you can imagine why we have executive drawers, because, only certain people get to see the executives. And then we also wanted to split out the HR support teams, because we didn't want them to see, either pay information or whatever information about each other. Trying to keep that stuff private. And then when somebody is termed or leaves the organization, we move their documents out of these general drawers into what we call the termination drawers. And so we still store them, and we store them, I think it's 6 or 7 years after they're termed. But also then it gets them out of the visibility. They don't need to be in the general population. All right. So now I'm going to talk about this process we built for automated assignment. So when documents come in, we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that if we got a document that it went into the right drawer so that the right people had access to it, and so that people who shouldn't see it can't see it. So we've actually built in, so I've talked before about how we scan and link. So you scan documents in the system, and then you link them, and you sign the doc type, and you save. And so we start out with the drawer, and we put it into the not filed drawer. And then we have a not filed or restricted drawer. And then we have a workflow script that it runs every hour or every 15 minutes, looks for documents in that drawer, finds them, and then it goes and looks up the document type, says, okay, this document type, you're an IT 2104, or you're W9, whatever, tax form. We know you need to go to payroll. We put you in the payroll drawer. So this was slick. So this is actually less clicks that the users have to do for our processes that are automated, where we know what the doc type is. I don't have to worry about somebody putting the wrong doc type. So this was a way that we, could create it's a nice little automated process. It helps us make sure that the documents get in the right drawers, and so that the documents are safe and secure, and then obviously less handling, less time by HRIS staff. What I'm showing here is, as we started to build out the system, and this is actually something that we've added since we went live, but what I wanted to show you here is now that we have sort of this automated system, we start to take advantage of it. So one of the things we do now is that we use our tools inside of PeopleSoft to pull reports. Let's say an example here is a compensation notification. So we know that that's going to get emailed to all the employees. So we want a copy of that in our records of what we sent at that date and time. So we send the employees their comp notes, notifications, but then we put a barcode in them with the document type and their employee ID on it, and now we send that. This is slick. We email, the individual documents to a mailbox. We have on the Perceptive content side, we have what we call the mail agent, and the mail agent actually monitors that mailbox. It converts the documents or RTF to a TIFF format. Then we use Perceptive Content's recognition agent, which actually reads the barcode. So we get the employee ID and the document type, and then we have a script that then gets the other, and then the script here, this iScript, is actually the script I just talked about before, where it gets put into the not filed drawer, and then depending on the document type, then it gets picked up and put into the right drawer. So this, on the PeopleSoft side, this is simple to do. We allow Some of our end users, like the HRIS staff, have access to Crystal, so they can create their own reports, so they can create their own forms. So my IT team doesn't have to help them. So they have the power now. They have it all within their own control to then manage these documents coming into the system. They love it because then they can control it and do what they need to do and handle requests very quickly. I love it because then my staff doesn't have to get involved, and it's just great. Okay, so just quickly here, I titled this asynchronous movements. So with all the processes I've talked about and the other ones that we have, none of them have to happen in a specific sequence. They just happen, so we don't have some overarching process scheduler or batch processing tool that, like an autosys, that really says, all right, this has to run, then when that completes, that has to run. Everything just runs on different schedules. And the only thing that the big trigger I said is when the new employee, and we create them, assign them the ready to be hired or offer accepted status. That is one trigger, then spawns a bunch of other things. But all these processes just work on their own. Okay. So this is an example. When I talked about before about the recruiter and having their manila file folder. So this is an example. So we've taken that manila file folder and then we've actually created a nice little eform that shows in a very simplistic way which documents we have for the new candidate and which ones we're still missing. And so obviously you can you understand the concept of the checks and the check marks and the X's. So obviously we needed, where we have that red X with the red stop sign, we still need to get those. But then you see down here at the bottom, we have it where there's a hole missing. So that's a document that it's not required. It's part of their, it belongs, if you get one, it goes into this folder, but it's not required. The ones where you see an icon, those are all required. And I like this because when the recruiters go in and you go into the folder and you see all the documents, you may have 50 documents. And you got to remember, I said, which one's required, which one's not required, and what do I have? So this little eform here just gives us a beautiful, quick representation of the status of the documents, or statuses of all the documents. This is an example of a PeopleSoft screen that has a link to Image Now. So if I wanted, I'm not John, but if I wanted to see my performance appraisal, I would just click on this link. And it would take me to, this is how it would look in Web Now. Obviously, we've blocked out the employee name, but we're showing you, so you would get a list like this with all the document types. And then and you can tell which year they're, which year the performance appraisal relates to. Okay. So this just gives you an idea of the different places inside of PeopleSoft where we put links to the documents inside of Perceptive content. So, after, at the kind of the end of the project, and we look back at, at what we did. So this slide talks about our backscanning project, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So our backscanning project was it was bigger, or actually took longer than the actual implementation. The backscanning project, was huge. We've had, our company's been around for over 100 years. We have, I can't remember how many boxes of employee files that we had. And it was a monumental task, and so we monumental task. We actually had an outside vendor come in. We had a vendor come in and help us with all that. We actually took over one of the I want to say offices offices here, and we actually papered the walls with all the different doc types that we had, because it was just huge. And from that, we got an understanding and helped the vendor understand, what our documents look like, and we also built the Bible out of that. So the existing hard copies, as it shows here, after they were scanned by the vendor and they were scanned offsite, they went into they were put back in the boxes and were shipped to cold storage and sat there, because we didn't really know. We didn't think that they would be accessed very often, but we didn't really know, so we didn't destroy them right away. And you can, these are people's records, and it's one of the things that's, it's hard to let go of that paper copy, because by God, if something happened, you know that you could go digging through, all those folders, and you would find the missing document. And it's, really kind of surprising that, even with them off-site, we only got a couple requests to see them. So that kind of broke that myth about, oh, we got to have all this, you just don't know. Well, we actually did a pretty good job on the back scanning, and it worked out. All of our new hard copies are retained on site after 2 years, and then they're destroyed thereafter. How am I doing on time? I got 5 minutes left. Okay. So at the end of our big project, so when we look at this, what we've done is we've put in place visibility into the HR record across the enterprise. So and that, I go back to, that's huge. Everybody now has access to all their records, and that continues to pay dividends. We eliminated the shadow files. We actually were able to repurpose staff that were managing those shadow files and managing the documents at our central HR facility or department. And I've seen that not only in that department. I've seen that, we've now had image now for going on our 4th year. I've seen that in other departments as well, or other implementations where we put Perceptive content in place. We're seeing a reduction in the time it takes to manage the paperwork. And so we're actually seeing, we're actually able to free up FTEs. Go back to, yes, and then go back to the slide, so improved our record management and reduce hard copy. If anybody knows New York real estate, it's thousands of dollars per square foot, and we'll be able to give back that space for for more people. Lessons learned. So what you're seeing here is an example of of a performance appraisal and how it's evolved over the years, and how this is what we papered the war room with when we were doing the back scanning. It's like, God, what are all the versions? What do they look like? And we actually you put these together to train the vendor on how to handle it. So this is these all went into what we call the Bible. The Bible. So what we learned is we try to keep it simple. We did automate as much as possible and kept those automations simple. We've since now, as we've gotten mature in our deployment here, we've added things and we've added refinements. But pretty much what I showed you is what we did. Our implementation time was about, I think it was about 4 months between when we had the Perceptive. We actually, when we did our first implementation, we had Perceptive come on site. We spent about a month. Working through the HR details and the processes and refining it and getting it down to where we had, a set of processes that were automated that we could build out and support. So it took about a month to create the solution design document. And I got to tell you, that was probably the best money spent in it. And I've actually, in a couple of subsequent very large, outside of this, but in some very large implementations, where we did the patient record, for us, 163,000 patients. We had 140 different doc types. So we actually brought Perceptive in again, and I think that's money very well spent, because you get to, they have all their experience. They bring back, what are other leading organizations or other organizations doing. They bring best practices in to, bring them to bear onto your needs and your challenges. So, and then after the first consultant was here, that we actually did the solution design document, we had another consultant come in, and he was great, and he was also fantastic. Yeah, he came in and he installed the application, installed the services, and got the scripts going, and got everything up and going. And actually, that was a great time for me, as being the part of the implementation. Is I could ask Jason a billion questions. Well, how do you do this? And what about that? And how do you do this? And so that's probably where I got, obviously, the bulk of my training. But prior to installing Perceptive Content, we actually flew out to Kansas City and did on-site training for a week, and that was great. And I enjoyed that, and got a lot out of it. But then, actually doing it and building the document types and building the capture profiles and building out the workflows and building all those pieces with Jason, I mean, that was just priceless. That was awesome. Color versus black and white. Obviously, color images are a lot bigger than black and white. It's on a magnitude of like 10 times. A black and white TIFF is around 6 to 10K. A black and white color image is around almost half a meg. So it's huge. And so we've stored a little bit of color, not very much. There's been a few situations where we had to store color images just because it helped with the clarity, but by and large, we don't do color. Try to stay away from it. These are other, okay, like 2 minutes left. This is working out pretty well. These are other processes that we brought in. We handle, so with Perceptive Content and workflow and reading barcodes, we actually, all of our physician signed orders come into Image now, or sorry, we're on version 6.6. So sometimes I say Image now because we're on 6.6, and that's what it was called. That's what it's called then. So we have thousands of orders that come in every day, and they are faxed, and they are scanned, and then they are emailed into Perceptive Content, and we've got it works pretty fast. We've got this great script that we'll have staff put on, say, 50 orders at a time. We scan them in a batch. We can separate that batch back into the individual orders. We actually can renumber the pages in the order. So we presented a 4-page order. We renumber the pages so it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 order. We then route it to the right group that needs to review it. And if it needs further review, we route it to another group. It's been hugely successful. That was an eye-opener for those groups. They got to use a web-based system with such power and flexibility and speed. We can stand up. One of the things, just about out of time, one of the things I really loved about Perceptive Content is now we can stand up solutions in a week, maybe 2 weeks. We've gotten so good at it here with my team that we can build out workflow. We can copy, we clone and copy the scripts that we need, and we can build out the doc types, the workflow, and we can stand up solutions, I'm not kidding, in 2 weeks. Anyway, I'm about run out of time on what I needed to say. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Jim or any questions you all have.
Thanks, Grant. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat window on the right, and we'll get those answered for you. All right, looks like we have a question coming in right now. You mentioned, Grant, you'd mentioned that one challenge prior to the project was employee complaints about HR service delivery. Has that improved?
Yes. So yes, it has improved. We've obviously cut down the time it takes between getting documents in handling the paperwork for new hires, so we can speed the new hires through our business processes quicker.
And this webinar focuses on the integration with PeopleSoft. Can Perceptive integrate with other ERP and HRS applications?
Yes, yes. So it can actually, it can be other ERP applications. You can integrate with mainframe applications. And some of those you can actually, this is kind of tricky. You can actually integrate to Perceptive content itself. We have some business processes here where we actually we bring in documents, or we'll bring in content, and we'll read say the employee ID or a patient record number or a case number. We'll get that into Perceptive content, and then as staff want to add more documents to that to that folder, they'll actually do a learn mode against Perceptive content and the case number that's displaying. So there's many different ways that you can integrate.
So relative to the implementation team, who is responsible for end user training and how is it delivered?
So we took the train-the-trainer approach. The HRIS analyst and the director who are part of the project. So the analyst, he and I sat in that war room together for 3 months, and he knew the application backwards and forwards, or the solution backwards and forwards by the time we were done. And so he did the training. He actually trained the recruitment staff. I think he trained about 70 people. So that fell under him.
And we've got one more here. It sounds like VNSY is continuing to evolve. As your internal business processes change, how flexible are the workflow tools to evolve the solution, and how long does it take to make adjustments to workflow?
So we do, we have 2 environments, development and production. So, do sort of your standard, practices of locking down production. Having said that, we can change the workflow with the tool. You can change the workflow immediately. You can change, you can either, if you're worried, we just kind of throw things at Perceptive content, and the software handles it. So we'll change workflow on the fly during the day. And I'm sure they're all, Perceptive content, they're all cringing over there, but we do it. We don't have any issues. And knock on wood, we don't have any issues. If we have to throw a script change in, we'll throw script changes in during the day. We use scripts sometimes to help with the routing, especially in the signed orders where we have thousands of orders coming in, and we have upwards of, I think, 200, no, it's more than that. It's probably closer to 400 different groups that can review the order. So we use scripts to help assign where the order is going to go, but we'll make script changes during the day. We haven't, knock on wood, we haven't had any issues with that. So it's been great. As I have a few more moments here, we kind of, we pretty much hammer Perceptive content pretty hard. Some of our workflow queues may have 60,000 items in it, and it handles it. We're on a SQL Server platform. Everything's a Windows platform with a SQL Server backend database. We're running on VMware. So we're able to give it, enough CPUs and enough memory and enough, and also storage. So we haven't had any restrictions there. And so with that, I mean, I would guess that probably across all the workflow queues, we probably have 500,000 items in all of our workflow queues at any one time, and it doesn't matter. It still handles it. We can go into workflow queues and pull up, 2,000 rows quickly. You can delete 2,000 rows at a push of a button. You can add and change custom properties on the fly. I know the guys over there at Perceptive are still cringing, but we do this. I'm sure it's not. I know it's not a leading practice, but it's just the way business works. And I keep knocking on wood over here. I'm not sure if you hear it or not, but I mean, it's been a very rock solid application for us. It's just been incredible the way it's been resilient to the changes. When we started out with our HR solution, the newbies, and just the way it goes, they want to throw everything into Perceptive. They want to have custom properties and searchable fields for not only job code. We want gender, and we want your address location, or we want which team you report to. And really, we probably had 50 custom properties when we started. And after about 3 months, nobody used them. They weren't worthless, but just nobody used them. We use our ERP system when we want to pull documents. We usually go to it either through our ERP system or through special queries that we build inside of Image Now. We don't pull up all the documents for Team 10. It just doesn't make sense. But we'd already had thousands and thousands of documents in the system with these custom properties. My director went in one day. He just started deleting them. When I heard, I screamed at him like, "What are you doing?" The system didn't care. It just kept on going on. It was impressive.
And then did Perceptive Software help you with the scripts, or did you and your tech team create them?
So we used Perceptive Software for the first set of scripts. I know I like scripts. I like writing scripts, but I wanted to see how they did it. I mean, I write SQRs and old scripts, and then I do the PeopleSoft scripts and I do Perl scripts, but I hadn't seen these and the way they do them. So I thought it was money very well spent, and we've been able to leverage for every script that Perceptive has written for us. We've copied and cloned at least 10 times over. It's gotten out to where we really don't ask them unless there's something really tricky. Like the signed orders was a very tricky process, and we have one script that's about 6,000 lines long. It's huge. It's huge, and it does some really cool stuff. But we've taken that script now and leveraged it on other processes. So yeah, we may have invested whatever the number is, $50,000, $10,000 with Perceptive on writing scripts for us. But we've gotten tenfold back out of that. We had them do it for the initial HR process. I had them do it for the signed orders. There was one other report that we did. There was a report that we did through scripts where we generated an email that was all in HTML. It was cool because I wanted the content. Instead of having them to go into the report and get a report out, I wanted to send the content inside the body of an email. And this was before we had, when we started was on 6.4, version 6.4, before they upgraded to the new reporting tool. But anyway, I go back to, so we've had them maybe create, 6 scripts for us or 8 scripts. We've now leveraged them 10 times over. Yeah, we just don't do a whole lot. And also integrations too. We had them, they did some of the first integrations, and now we do it lights out.
And then was it hard to get executives to buy in to fund the solution? And what was that process like?
No, we didn't, because actually the solution started on the HR side because they knew they had an issue, and they had an issue with recruitment and getting the, that there was a time lag, and they're having a hard time. One of the things, that you saw on that one of the slides was, where we had the green checks and the red checks. So, one of the issues we had was, passing the file folder around, the paper file folder around, and where are the missing documents? Like, you hire a nurse, you got to have certain things, and you got to have background checks, and you got to have that stuff. And, the way, the operations operates at one speed, like they need a nurse today to do, because we have visits they need to make, but then we also have all those background information. So it was an easy buy-in on that side. And then once we got 2 implementations under our belt, we've gotten pretty much widespread adoption now across the agency.
All right, I'm going to do one last call for questions. If there's any other questions, please go ahead and type those in now. Going once. Twice, and sold. I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you so much, and we will be sending out a recording of this webinar to you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you. That was fun.